and welcome to Thinking is Free, proudly brought to you by Chinmaya Mission New Zealand.
Hariom everyone, welcome back. My name is Akash and in the studio today we have Ishanji and Pooja.
Hariom.
Hariom.
Welcome back, Pooja.
Thank you. Happy to be back. Really excited.
How was your holiday?
Very, very good. Very tiring. I need a holiday from my holiday. But it was amazing. Very blessed.
How long were you away for?
5.5 weeks.
Wow.
Almost 6 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. And whereabouts did you go?
All over Europe. Didn't really touch Eastern Europe as much, but did like London, Italy, France, Austria, Barcelona.
Ukraine.
No, I didn't. So tempting, but no, I did not. Yeah, we didn't touch Eastern just because of all the conflict going on.
Yeah.
And then I think the closest that anyone got to the Israeli stuff actually was in Crete.
Right.
Because it's like right opposite the ocean. But yeah, that was definitely concerning. But I had a good rest. It was very hot.
Yeah.
Now I'm back. And now it's freezing here.
When I was over there as well, that was for the 2 weeks we were there, 3 weeks we were there, we had really good weather and everyone said, like, if we'd come a week before, it would have been really bad. And then after we left, everyone said, it was, you know.
That's exactly what everyone said to me. They're like, yeah, you're very lucky to get good weather in London.
Yeah.
But I only experience good weather in London, so I don't know what they're talking about.
Something about the Kiwis,
They're
man.
all lying to me, yeah.
But I have spoken to people who have come, like, if we talk to anyone who's from the UK, you know, like, it's just grim. You know, it's just grey.
Yeah.
And you do see parts of that, you know.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I didn't see anyone because
it is pretty grey.
they get so excited about the sun there. So like it'll be like 15 degrees and everyone will be like taking their shirts off and like lying down in the sun. And I'm like, it's actually really cold still, but it's fine.
It's the Indianness, you know, when you're like going to school and it's still sunny, but I don't know. I always felt when I was at school and it was sunny, I still had a jumper on.
Yeah. Because as soon as you enter like any sort of shade, it actually does get really cold. So I do get it. Yeah.
Anyway, there's more to talk about in terms of your travels and traveling in general. But before we get to that, I thought we should just extend on what we've been discussing in class recently. So with Ishanji, we've been talking about happiness, and I thought happiness was just happiness. And then having gone to class, and now we've learned that there are different types of happiness or levels to happiness. So we've got a sattvic level of happiness, a rajas level of happiness, and tamas.
I wouldn't call them levels, but different types.
Yeah. Right. Well, there's different types of happiness. And I thought it'd be good to bring it to the table and talk about why it's there and what it is. And I think it just helps to bring a bit more perspective to people as they go about their day-to-day.
Yeah. Especially because happiness is what we're chasing constantly. It pays to know what sort of happiness we're chasing and what does it culminate in. We want happiness that is everlasting. We want happiness that does not fade away. But are we really chasing that sort of happiness? Or are we chasing something that is inherently flawed?
I guess, are you happy now that you're back, or were you?
That's actually really interesting. Yeah, because I think I was happy to be back because I'm like, I have that feeling of home, you know? There's like a base and there's like a just a relaxed state. Whereas I feel like when you're constantly on the move, like we wouldn't like not staying anywhere for longer than like 3 days. So when you have that like constant change always, like I just feel like you feel a bit agitated, like a bit restless. And I wasn't unhappy on my travel. I loved every part of it. But like being at home is just like, I could just be like
a
calm.
different kind of happiness.
Yeah. And it's like very calm, very quiet. Like it's a quiet calm as opposed to like a really like erratic, like excitement. And in both ways I'm happy. So I guess that's, good thing we're talking about this today.
Different kinds of happiness which we can dive into.
Yeah.
So let us start with this question about what is happiness, right? And happiness is actually a thought. It is a function of the mind.
Okay.
And we can say that happiness arises in the mind. This thought becomes available in the mind when the world outside is in line with my expectations, with my desires, with my vasanas. So whenever there's not a break, but if the world outside and my expectations are not in alignment with each other, I think that's the that's the word that I was looking for. When there's an alignment between the two, we experience happiness. When my expectations and the world outside are not in alignment with each other, we experience sorrow or agitation.
Yeah.
Would you agree with this general statement that this is what we call as happiness?
Yes. Yeah. And it's not always sorrow. Maybe it's just a lack of happiness as well.
Agitation.
But yeah,
discomfort,
frustration.
Yeah.
So there are degrees to it.
Something's just off sometimes, you know? Yeah.
Right? And
you're just not feeling good.
Yeah.
And if that misalignment is too great, then it becomes sorrow and grief and misery and etc. But it can be as simple as something's off. And I'm not happy, right?
Yeah.
So it's a scale.
Yeah.
It's not just one
Yeah.
set level to it. Okay. So happiness is a state of mind produced when my expectations and the world outside are in alignment with each other. So one of the conclusions out of this is there is no happiness outside, happiness is within.
Rule number one.
Right? Happiness is within.
Yeah.
Right? And when we say happiness is within, right now we're just talking at the level of the mind. We'll take it to a higher level later on. But for this conversation, we'll restrict happiness to that which arises in the mind.
Right.
Yeah? And it is still within, it's not outside. Now, if we question, how does this happiness at the level of the mind arise? We find that there are multiple ways in which it arises, and based on how it arises, makes it sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. So sattvic, just for our audience, sattvic means that which is pure. Rajasic translates to passionate, and tamasic translates to dull or inertia. So the most common form of happiness that we know of is rajasic happiness. And what is the definition of rajasic happiness as per the Bhagavad Gita? It is that happiness which is born of sense contact. When senses contact the world outside, and in the beginning it is a lot of fun, a lot of enjoyment, but it culminates in pain and sorrow.
Yeah.
That is rajasic happiness.
An example of this would be?
Traveling. Right? It is happiness. We can't deny that it's not happiness. But I plan for it because it gives me happiness.
Yeah.
And while I'm at it, it is great fun. But as it wears on, as I spend more and more time, I say, okay, this is enough. I need to go back.
Yeah.
It's becoming tiring now. And so the verse that's in the Bhagavad Gita is Pariname Vishamiva. Parinama means at the end, it is like poison. It's bitter. But in the beginning, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it is born of the contact of senses with sense objects. This is rajasic happiness. It's like this is the only kind of happiness we know.
Yeah. It's
Pretty
like,
much.
yeah, if we just a few more examples,
Yeah,
like
I mean-
you're looking at your phone, it's like we buy a new phone at the beginning as like, oh my gosh, new phone, but then you look at the bank account.
Correct. Or even something as simple as a hot chocolate or a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
when we have it, it's great, but the outcome of it is either it makes us more dependent upon it. The more we indulge in it, the more dependent we become on it. Or if I overindulge, it causes me pain and sorrow. Right? So if I have too much coffee, can't sleep at night, hypertension, high blood pressure, erratic heartbeat. There's so many issues that arise out of it. And even if I don't have any of that, there's definitely a dependency being created where my day doesn't start, or I can't have a good day without a coffee.
That's right.
So the culmination of that happiness is in pain and sorrow and dependency, and therefore it's classified as rajasic happiness.
Yeah.
But we don't recognize this all the time. And what we do is we jump from one object to another. But our scriptures are so amazing that they say that if it is born of an external object, it's rajasic. And it is bound to culminate in sorrow.
External objects includes relationships.
Yes.
I was just going to say people.
Yeah, because even there, eventually,
People leave, people die.
It's finite.
Right.
Yeah.
at the end of it, it causes sorrow.
Yeah.
Whether it's the relationship itself fizzles out, and when we break up, there's a lot of heartbreak, grief and sorrow. Or while we are alive or they're alive, the relationship lasts, but the relationship also has to end. And when the person leaves or departs this world, there's pain and grief and sorrow. And while they are there, there's a dependency that without this person, I don't know what will happen to me. So if it is born of sense contact from some external object, it is Rajasic, Sukham.
I think, and it could be another like podcast topic that we talk about, but what that kind of makes me think is like, how do you, like love and happiness are two different things. Like, you know, like how do you then be happy in a relationship or have that love? And I don't know. I think I need to flesh that out a bit more, the question, but that's kind of what I was just thinking on
Like
that.
if you anticipate the sorrow at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if you understand that the happiness is not from a person, you know, then like...
It doesn't stop us from loving.
Right, okay.
Does it? It's
Or is it more
it's
just
something we're thinking about?
Is it more just the understanding that this is that type of happiness that I've got here, and knowing that there's more?
I mean, to have that expectation that this will last forever is setting ourselves up for sorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, but then what I'm trying to say is, what's the point of it? If we know that that's going to give us sorrow, then what's the purpose of it?
We did do a whole series on what is the point of relationships and also marriage, right?
Yeah.
So I think we did cover these points. So please do feel free to flick back to those episodes and have a think of it.
See above.
And I think this is the it's a beautiful idea that's come up, that just discussing or listening to it once, it does not seep in.
Yeah.
We have to revisit these ideas again and again for them to actually have an impact on our mind. And I think therefore constant satsang is really, really important.
Yeah.
Discussing these ideas once as a one-off is not enough to change the way we do things and think.
No, not at all. I mean, we've been going to class I've been going to class since I was like 3 years old, different levels of class.
Yes.
But like, I'm still like, I have so many questions still. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But this idea of rajasic happiness, that yes, it is happiness to begin with, but it culminates in sorrow. Is that something that we want? It's a question that we have to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think let's talk about your experience of, by the end of week 3 or week 4, what were you experiencing?
Well, it was, so for me, it was like exhausting.
Yeah.
And I loved every minute of it, of course. And I think I pushed myself even more because I was like, I've paid all this money to be here. I don't really want to rest because like I can just rest at home. So it was like exhausting, even though I was experiencing so many new things. But even that mental strain of experiencing something new is not something you have at home. So like there's so much familiarity in New Zealand and Auckland that like even if I'm really, really busy every day, I'm still not as tired as if I'm like seeing something new constantly, which I was overseas. But I definitely viewed happiness during my travels as like peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
Like it was like very high, very low, very high, very low. And that like was quite normal for me. Like I wouldn't have expected anything different.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I would ever expect. And if there is a way, please let me know, to travel and like have like just a straight line. Like you're just feeling like equanimity all the time.
Yeah.
And if you can travel like that, I would love to know how. But I've never experienced travel that way.
Yeah. So true that, exhaustion that we feel, that troughs and highs, that is classic Rajasic happiness. And it is exhausting at the end of the day because the mind has to oscillate up and down, get these highs, get these lows. And it's tiring.
Yeah. But they say, right, like it's so interesting because I'm just thinking about all these things that I was like told as a child or like I've just like heard growing up, that like you cannot appreciate the light until you experience darkness. Like they say things like that. So like you can't experience, like you can't appreciate how happy you are until you've experienced some really low lows, which I don't know how true that is. And then I also heard one time somebody told me that like, oh, if you laugh a lot, like you will cry as much as you laugh in your life. So it's like equal amounts, which is not true. It's not true at all. But they say that like if you're like laughing too much, they'll be like, oh, if you laugh this much now, like remember you're going to cry the same amount later.
Yeah.
And
so you don't laugh?
Yeah, no, but it's like dampening my happiness. But like just like little things like that where I'm just like, we are actually so conditioned to like view the peaks and troughs as happiness, as real happiness. And that's why I think we chase it so much.
Yeah.
Because that's really all we've experienced and all we've been taught to experience.
Yeah. So we don't know any better.
Yeah.
And we tend to chase this high, which is always followed by a low. And that low is not what we desire, though.
Yeah.
And it's only when we see this pattern of happiness, which culminates in sorrow or pain or exhaustion or fatigue, we say, okay, is there a better kind of happiness available? And that's when spirituality comes in and says, okay, there is a better way of being happy. And that's when we start seeking this sattvic sukham, sattvic happiness. So then the question is, what is sattvic happiness, right?
That's what I want to know, yeah.
So according to the Bhagavad Gita, there are a few parameters given to recognize sattvic happiness. The first is, in the beginning, it's like poison. Means it's bitter, it's hard. We don't enjoy it. But over a period of time, when we learn to enjoy it, it actually benefits us and brings us a lot of peace and satisfaction.
It's the opposite.
The opposite of Rajasic
Yeah.
Sukham. Right? So, for example, eating junk food or eating just really tasty food or spicy food, depends on what it is. In the beginning, a lot of fun. You keep on doing it for a period of time, it's going to harm you some way or the other. Whereas eating healthy food, no one likes eating healthy food, but it is good for us.
Yeah.
And this is the difference between Rajasic Sukham and Sattvic Sukham. Similarly with other things as well. With disciplines, no one likes disciplines.
No one likes rules.
But following them gives us a sense of clarity, gives us a way of living which is definitely beneficial than a haphazard, whimsical way of living.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just in terms of like how in the beginning when Akash was introducing the topic, you corrected his use of the word levels.
Yes.
I just wanted to like clarify why, because how I'm hearing it, it does seem like one is better than the other. And I know we don't want to use the word levels because we don't want to make one seem better than the other.
No, one is better than the other.
Yeah, so why do we not want to have it as levels? Why is it like...
Because when we say levels is perhaps the intensity
Yeah.
rather than type. So within Sattvic Sukham also you'll find levels, different varying intensities of...
Within levels within the levels.
Yeah. So I wouldn't call Rajasic, Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic different levels of happiness. They are
Okay.
different types of happiness. And within each, there'll be different levels.
Okay.
Varying
Right?
intensities.
I see.
Varying intensities.
Okay.
yeah.
Like the joy arising out of travel
Mm.
will be very different to the joy arising out of just meeting a friend after 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're both born of contact with the world outside, but the intensity is different. They're different
And different for different people.
and different
Yeah.
for different people.
Different people experience
Yeah.
it differently.
Yeah. They're both Rajasic.
They're both Rajasic.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Got it.
Okay. Coming back to Sattvic Sukham.
Mm.
So one parameter is, in the beginning, it is like poison. It's bitter. No one enjoys it. In the long run, it starts to yield greater happiness, and it's actually sustainable happiness. We're all about sustainability these days. Right? Sustainable happiness is Sattvic Sukham.
Mhm.
So any good habits, any disciplines that we create for ourselves, they lead us to a better way of living, a better sense of control over our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And another parameter that is used is, it is abhyasad ramate yatra, which means that there will definitely be a repetition required before I start enjoying it. The first few times it's going to be painful.
Painful.
Right? Only over a period of time I learn to enjoy it.
Yeah.
If anyone has tried meditation, it's horrible at the
Yeah,
beginning, right? Because we're just not used to it.
Mm.
It's more painful to sit down quietly for 2 minutes or 5 minutes than go for a walk
Mm-hmm.
or go for a run or watch TV.
Yeah.
But in the long run, that happiness born of meditation is a lot greater than that which arises out of watching TV.
Mm.
It's yeah. I've even on my notes here. I've got it's that we're just so desire driven, and it's like our bodies, or like because of our desires, we're just magnetized to everything outside, and that's so comfortable. And the idea of letting go of all of that is so hard.
Yeah.
We just like before you even do anything, any action, and you're just thinking about what you're gonna do. Even that idea is hard to even comprehend that it could be.
Yeah.
To sit there and think, oh, like okay, like for me, it's easy for me to sit there and scroll on TikTok or Instagram or something, and then like you're saying, the thought of sitting down and meditating or even just doing some stretching is just like we live in that comfort because like you're saying, it's giving you that joy, but for how long? And then you feel upset because you're not productive.
Yeah.
And you've sat there and an hour's
Oh
gone.
my gosh, this is like every day after work for me. Like,
So, has anyone over here deleted social media recently?
yes.
You have.
Yeah.
So, we obviously spend a lot of time on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Rajasic Sukham, born out of contact of senses with sense objects.
Yeah.
The denial of those sense objects. Do you think you are happier now without social media? Or are you still in that phase where it's still a struggle and you're not yet completely at peace, not knowing what is happening, not being in touch with the world?
Yeah, I think that's so like I think I enjoy it in the sense that like I don't feel the pressure to like have to post and have to like kind of show up for something, you know? So like, I feel like there was like a kind of a pressure, like, oh, what's a funny caption? And like, what can I post next? And like, how do I show the world that I'm like winning, you know? So I don't have that, which is nice.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. It does get really stressful because you're always thinking, and then like sometimes I'd like make a post because I like had thought of something funny to say and I just wanted to use a caption. So I'd like find a photo to put up and like, it was just too much. So I think for me and like my kind of personality, like I think it was good for me to step away.
Yep.
So definitely happy in that sense. But there is the lack of like connection that is still getting to me a little bit. Like there's like somebody would get engaged or married or whatever, but like, and everyone would know, and I'd be like, oh, like you just don't know. And like people like also create events on Facebook, and then like it's just admin for them to have to like reach out to me separately, and like it's really lovely that they do, but like it just creates another like it's harder to get to me. So I think that I still kind of feel a little about, but
So having been off social media for about 7-8 years now,
that's ages.
it is. And once you get over those initial moments of withdrawal and, you know, missing what we have become used to, it becomes a lot easier, and life is, as in, you have more capacity in your mind to do things which are more important. And you have resources to dedicate to that which really needs working on. And you're definitely in a better position without those things.
Your mind switches off and away from them. Because I remember in class we talked about diet, you know, and for us being vegan, you know, like it's.
Are you
like,
vegan, Pooja?
I'm not vegan.
Are you trying to be vegan?
I'm not trying.
Not trying anymore.
But yes, no, continue though. You guys are vegan, yes. I will listen. Yeah.
But you know, like I've always spoken. Okay, I'll use myself for an example. You know, just having milk and cheese. Let's start with that. You know, at the beginning, it was somewhat hard. You know, but then as I've kept going through it, now that I just know I am this, and it's just something that I do, and it's part of who I am. Like the thought of this doesn't, like dairy products doesn't come into mind. Like it's, I've been able to see how that's dissolved. It's just not there anymore.
Yeah. And so that is that
You know?
abhyasadramate yatra. And the culmination of Sattvic Sukham is in the end of all sorrows, which means that it leads us to recognizing this absolute inner peace or happiness, which is not dependent upon anything whatsoever.
Which is how I could see, you know, like you're saying you're off social media, but he's off.
Yeah, he's properly off.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and you can see how that has dissolved over time.
Yeah.
Which is hard to see when we're sitting here, like, you know, like right at the forefront. And like we're talking about how Sattvic Sukham is painful at the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, but at the end it's like,
Yeah.
so, like I don't care about social media.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a sense of freedom where you can say that this does not impact me. I have that sense of independentness where an external situation, no matter what's happening on social media, and there's so much of it these days, it does not touch me.
Yeah.
And the truth is, for all of us, it was the case once upon a time. We have given the power to control us and impact us.
Yeah.
And today we say, oh, I cannot do without it. But the truth is, we can all do without it. We've just trained ourselves to be or have that impact us so deeply and play such a great part in our lives.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a place for it in life though. Like I think value can be added from social media. For example, I still have my LinkedIn, which in my last 2 jobs I got because of LinkedIn. So I think
Okay. I don't think LinkedIn is social media. It's actually there for work purposes.
But it's like a social network, right? It's a network, which is what and I still have Reddit. Reddit is also like, it's not really as social, but forum based. But I think, and even like Instagram and things like that, I think there is like marketing and stuff that it is beneficial. It has its place.
Absolutely.
So I think even though for me, like having my personal Instagram, like I don't have that anymore. I think that was the right decision for me. But I think for some people, like if they are in that space and they do need to like market or use it as a tool, I definitely think like it is needed. But I think for me in my case, and I think most people, like the first thing I thought of was when I was first starting to be like, oh, should I just get it back? Like, this is just too hard. Like, people can't contact me. And then I was like, no, but like the most important relationships in my life remain. Those people will get in touch with me in other ways. And also like, it's not detrimental to me in any way for my case.
Yeah.
But I do think like, I don't want to like completely be like, no, social media is useless.
No,
but
no,
like,
no. As in, our dependency upon it is
of course. Yeah.
There is no place for that.
No,
but
not
in
at
terms of a marketing tool and getting work done, sure, yes, it serves a purpose, and no one's denying that.
Yeah. But then you have to be limited.
Yes.
And use it as a tool. Because
As a tool,
I
yes.
was not using it as a tool.
As long as we are in control of it rather
Yeah.
than it controlling
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
Knowing your relation to it.
Yeah.
And your purpose for having it, because even having your personal social media accounts, there is a purpose for that. Like, if you want people to be able to like see what you're up to, and like even like as a personal, like as a public journal, maybe just like document like all the experiences you've had in your life and something to look back on. Or like there's various purposes to like why people use social media. And I think if you're clear on that, then yes. But I think the reason I chose to leave was because I was it was starting to create a lot of unhappiness in me because I was comparing a lot, and it was so detrimental to my like mental peace that I was like, this is just not even serving its purpose anymore. Like I wasn't clear on what my purpose was for it, and so leaving was the best decision for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's up to each one of us to recognize our relationship with the world around us and to use it intelligently.
Yeah.
And finally, the last parameter that is given for Sattvic Sukham is it is Atma Buddhi Prasadajam, means it is born out of a integration of my own inner personality, where the mind is under the influence and the guidance of the intellect. It's not demanding something that is contrary to what I have understood to be right for me, which eventually will allow me to gain knowledge, meditate, and realize the truth, that inner happiness within. So the Sattvic Sukham becomes a stepping tool or a gateway to that permanent, independent inner happiness. But you can see how it is definitely free of dependence on the world outside.
Yeah.
It is more dependent upon inner integration of the mind being under the control of the intellect. It's not having the split personality. It's integrating the inner personality. There's no two voices saying, I should be doing this, but I feel like doing this.
Yeah.
It is where I know what is right and I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
And therefore it requires a bit of training, mind training. And therefore you need that repetition. And in the beginning it's really hard, but it culminates in not only the end of sorrows, but us experiencing that peace and quietude, just like coming back home. Right? So we can probably end with this example that comes in one of the Upanishads. And over there, the example is given of a bird tied to a pole. And in the vicinity, there is nothing else. So just imagine there's a pole in the middle of the ocean, and there's a bird tied with a rope onto the pole. And so this bird every morning goes out wandering, looking for happiness or finding a place to rest. And it flies all day, does not find anything, and it comes back to the pole to rest at night. And then it does the same thing the next day. And the teaching is our minds are a bit like that. We hunt for happiness everywhere outside, and every night we come back and rest in our own true self. Happiness is within at all times. We're just not recognizing it.
Make it sound so easy.
I know these Upanishads are amazing. The way, in a short anecdote, they convey so much.
That's Ishanji's mic drop.
Yeah, honestly. Leave now. Just walk out.
That was the whole podcast just in that story.
Yeah. It's beautiful to
It
remember
is.
that.
Yeah.
That really we try to find happiness everywhere around and we really don't find it. And where are we going to find it? Exactly where we are. We go to rest every night, which is in our own true self within.
Yeah.
We don't need objects. We don't need places. We don't need situations. We don't need people for our happiness. Happiness is within. And that which allows us to recognize and tap into this inner happiness is sattvic sukham. So, yeah. And then there's tamasic sukham, which is the lowest form where we think it is sukham, but from the beginning to the end, it's actually harming us the whole time. For example, drugs, the moment I come in contact with it, it's actually starting to harm me, but I think it is giving me joy.
Mm.
The perception.
The perception is,
That
yes,
it's
it is giving me joy.
but it's actually doing
It's
more
actually
harm.
harm.
Yeah.
No, not more harm, it's just harming me at
Right.
all times,
Yeah.
but I don't see it. So drugs, alcohol, gambling, all of these, they are detrimental to me from the very first moment. Even certain forms of happiness, which is violent.
Mm. I was thinking of it as well as that if we put it on the scale, you've the tamasic sukham is more self-centered,
Mm.
and that also affects. It definitely affects people around you as well.
Mm.
And then on the sattvic sukham, that's more self-inclusive and
Mm.
has a bit more of a positive effect on.
I would actually go to say that Rajasic Sukham is self-centered,
Right.
Sattvic Sukham is self-inclusive, and Tamasic Sukham is actually self-destructive.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. So any sort of like addiction, really.
Yeah. There's so many forms of Sukham, or perceived Sukham, where we think we're enjoying it, but we're actually harming ourselves and harming the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
The classic example that I give is, I don't know how people enjoy this, is MMA. It's just sheer violence.
We talked about this in class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, there's people harming each other,
Yeah.
and in our minds, enjoying that we are okaying violence in our minds.
Mm.
Yeah.
We're harming ourselves, we're harming others, and we are gaining happiness out of it. It's just perceived happiness. It's really harming. It's destructive to everyone.
That's so interesting. I'm not sure how much time we've got left, but in terms of like the perceived happiness, even in those moments, is our intellect and mind not in harmony?
I think there'll be another topic
It's too
altogether.
much. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
Nice. It's a nice place to hit pause here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely, yeah, we raised some really good points today. And I think first off is, listening to it once isn't always
Yeah.
going to let it sink in. I think there's plenty more episodes to go back and listen to. And then also just understanding that there are different types of happiness, and within them are varying levels of intensity.
Yeah.
And although while right now things seem like they're going to bring us happiness, because most of us operate on the Rajasic level, to have almost the fortitude or the understanding to know what it's going to lead to,
Yeah.
and therefore looking at
Should
the
we do a quick
alternative
recap of it?
Of?
So Sattvic Sukham,
Mm-hmm.
the parameters for Sattvic Sukham are born of repetition.
Mhm.
It actually culminates in joy, peace, and tranquility.
Yep.
In the beginning, it's bitter,
Painful.
but painful. And in the culmination, it's joy-giving. And it is born of this inner integration of mind and intellect. And that is Sattvic Sukham. Rajasic Sukham is born of sense contact, of the senses with the objects of the world outside. In the beginning, it is joy-giving, but it culminates in pain and sorrow and fatigue. And tamasic sukham is just really self-destructive, but it appears to be joy-giving. It's really not giving joy at any point in time, in the beginning or in the end. I think that's a nice way to wrap things up and put things into perspective.
Definitely.
Cool.
Cool. Thank you so much, Ishanji. Thanks, Pooja, and welcome back as well.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to our listeners out there as well. Thank you for being on the journey with us. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Thinking is Free, proudly brought to you by Chinmaya Mission New Zealand. For more information on events, courses, seva projects and study groups, please visit chinmaya.org.nz. Hari Om.